is precious, but it's not like other precious things. You can't hold it like a necklace or taste it like money. Time has existed since before time began, and today it's all around us, on our phones, in the corner of the news. But once upon a time, if you wanted the time, then you had to come here, to the headquarters of time, Greenwich Clock Museum. All the clocks in the world are set from here, which must take ages. So, what is clocks? Clocks was invented by the ancient Mesopotamians in ancient Mesopotamian times, but they didn't know it were ancient Mesopotamian times because there were no clocks to see what the times was. Because of the shape of clocks, you might think that time goes in a circle, but it actually goes in a line. This is the famous Greenwich Merillion line, named after the band Marillion, who were named after this line. Every day that's ever happened starts exactly here, coming out of that time transmitter and running along this metal line on the ground. That's why this is the only place in the world where I can be in the past and the future, with the present running right up through my middle bits. No wonder time is such a mystery. Literally no one can understand it apart from science men. One science man who knows all about time is this science man. Hello, science man, who are you?
I'm Dr. Stuart Clark. I'm an astronomy writer and a fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society.
What is time?
We don't actually know. There are a couple of possibilities. Either time could be a physical thing that flows like a river, or it could be more of a psychological thing.
When you say it's like a river, what do you mean?
I mean that time it flows like the water in the river, and that the events in our lives are like things in the river that water encounters.
Like fish and stuff?
Yes.
You know when you store time on a clock, how do you get it back out again? Because when I was winding my watch up, I accidentally put it forward, so I'd got 2 hours more in my clock. But then I put it back, but I thought, is it still in there? Is the time still in the clock?
So your watch doesn't actually measure time?
Well, it does, because it's accurate.
It measures the oscillation of a crystal. And the change in the physical state of that crystal has to happen in what we call a certain amount of time. So from one moment to another, physical systems everywhere in the universe changes its state. And that change takes place in what we call time. And that's the only way we can infer the existence of time. But actually what time is, we don't know.
Right. So, even the people who understand time don't understand what time is. It'll always be an unknowable mystery, like why the seasons change or how a telephone works. Next time on Moments of Wonder, I'll be asking, what are these? And why are they everywhere? 1 in 20 people has been a victim of crime, which means that 19 out of 20 people are criminals. No wonder we need police. In the olden days, if someone did something wrong, there was nothing you could do except form a mob with your neighbours and hunt them down and kill them. But today, we've got one other option, thanks to Sir Robert Peel, who in 1829 discovered the police, here on a spot marked today by a ceremonial wind turbine. Once the police had been invented, victims of crime knew who to ask for help because of their special hats, designed to be visible at a distance by people being murdered in the London fog. Police tried to stop crime, but couldn't exist without it. If there was no crime, what would they do? Except spend all day putting addresses on bikes with that hammer. If no one's going to steal those bikes, that's just decorating. Of course, there's no point fighting crime if you don't know what crime is. That's where rules come in. But what is rules? A rules is basically a collection of laws. The first example being the Ten Commandments, which were left on a hill by God. Many of those laws, killing, gravity, and the one about not interfering with oxes, are still used today, even though God's dead. So, who decides what's right and what's not right, and works out what the punishment should be and then writes it down? Maybe an expert can help us get to the truth. Hello, who are you and what are you an expert on?
My name is Chris Williams. I'm a senior lecturer at the Open University and I'm an expert on the history of crime, policing and justice.
If a policeman broke the law, would he be able to arrest himself?
I don't think so, no. Under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, the arresting officer has to sign the prisoner over to the custody officer, and if they were one and the same person, I can't see how that would work. Also, I don't know how the investigator can interview themselves legally under that act, and if the case ever got to court, which I don't think it would, the defendant would be in a position to cross-examine himself. So I think the judge would stop the trial at that point. But no, I think is the answer to your question.
When they do reconstructions, you know, on telly, they're dead convincing, aren't they? Have any of them sort of, like, got a bit out of hand and turned back into an actual crime?
Not to my knowledge, no.
It must have happened. Must have.
Probably not. They're relatively highly...
It probably has happened, though.
We'd probably have heard of that if it had happened.
All right, OK. So, if there wasn't police, we'd be able to do what we liked, which is great. But then the police wouldn't be able to do what they liked, which is be the police. And that would be against their human rights. Next time on Moments of Wonder, I'll be finding out how all these little flaws make it easier to get between the big flaws. It's almost unbelievable that before Charles Darwin invented evolution in 1859, no one had ever evolved. Without him, none of us would be here today, except in the form of fossils or gibbons. The story goes that here in this garden in Kent, Darwin saw an apple fall from a tree and wondered if there was a monkey up there. And if so, where that monkey might have come from. Darwin was one of the most famous men of his age, like Paddy McGuinness is now, except Darwin had a beard, which Paddy McGuinness doesn't, unless they use CGI to paint it out, which they probably don't because it's expensive. Even though it's obviously just boring today, The Origin of Species was the biggest sensation of its age, thanks to the twist ending in which Darwin revealed everyone on the planet had been made out of monkey meat all along. It caused a battle between science and the church that still rages today, although you apparently don't see them fighting like this because it's only a metaphorical battle. Even today, many people still don't believe in evolution, but maybe a science man can put them right. Hello, science man. Who are you and what are you an expert in or on?
I'm Mark Thomas and I'm a Professor of Evolutionary Genetics at University College London.
What did people do before evolution?
Well, there weren't any people before evolution. I mean, life started evolving about 4 billion years ago.
If we came from monkeys, why are there still monkeys?
Because some of those monkeys that lived a long time ago turned into other monkeys that we see today, like chimp monkeys and so on.
All right. So the monkeys that didn't turn into humans, they must be gutted that they didn't turn into humans. Right, sometimes when I watch these past life hypnosis programs on satellite channels, All the people on those, they're always ladies in waiting or gladiators. They're never monkeys. Why is that?
Probably because they don't actually remember their past lives. It's probably not true.
But I find it easier to believe that I was a lady in waiting than a monkey.
Well, it's maybe easy to believe that your ancestors were ladies in waiting, but
monkeys.
I don't see the problem between believing both that your ancestors were ladies in waiting a few hundred years ago
and before that
were
monkey
monkeys.
ladies in waiting. Thanks.
Because evolution can't be seen, it's hard to believe in, like electricity or skeletons. But one day, maybe we'll evolve eyes that can see evolution, and that'll prove it's real. Next week on Moments of Wonder, I'll be finding out where clouds go at night.
Computers are all around us, in offices, computer shops and computer repair shops. It's hard to think of anything that doesn't have a computer in it, except cows. And they've probably got computers in them now. Computers have become part of our culture. Scenes like this are commonplace. You have to ask the question, are we looking at the computers or are the computers looking at us? Even though the answer to that question is obvious, it sounds spooky. The computer was invented by Charles Babbage in 1822, but it didn't have a screen, so no one knew what it was doing. Konrad Zuse managed to invent a proper one in Germany in 1936, but that one got bombed up by the British. And that meant we could invent it first again, thanks to a man called Alan Turing here at Bletchley Parks in War II. Unlike today's computers, this early computer is made of transistors and pipes. And as you can see, it's absolutely huge. And the mouse has gone missing, but it must have been the size of a car. The invention of the computer was of primary benefit to one particular group of people, video game players. Until computers, they'd had to play the games using a pen and paper or coloured bits of dough. A game of Pac-Man could take 3 days just to set up if the peas kept rolling off the table. The computer changed all that. There's almost nothing a person can do that a computer can't, except ride a horse. So lots of jobs have been replaced by computers. Perhaps one day we'll have a computer queen, with the real queen just used for the bits that are on a horse. In the future, I'd be able to ask a computer about computers, but for now, I'll have to speak to a human who is an expert in computers. So, are you a computer expert?
I'm Dr. Sean Holden, and I'm a senior lecturer in computer science at Cambridge University.
Will there ever come a time where we need 2 mouses to work a computer?
I don't think so. I think it's more likely that there'll be a time when you don't need any mouses. Things are moving now towards touchscreens, gesture recognition, brain-computer interfaces.
So what's that?
It's where you can sense, to an extent, what someone is thinking.
Like Darren Brown?
Not as well as that.
Right.
Well, not yet, anyway.
Paul McKenna?
You might be able to make the cursor, say, the mouse pointer go left or right.
Just by thinking, go right?
Yeah, that's about where the technology is.
But how can it do that? How will it know? I don't understand.
It's possible to get some information about what your brain is doing by things like encephalograms done in the hospital.
What?
Encephalograms.
Say it again.
Encephalograms.
Say it again.
Encephalograms.
Right.
So you can get some information about what your thoughts are doing through that kind of interface, which maybe means you're sticking electrodes on your head at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's early days.
That's amazing, isn't it? Would you get one of those?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not? Alan Turing, the weird man who discovered computers, is now a national hero, and people queue for ages to touch the Turing shroud. There are even computers made of cloud now. What next? A computer you can eat or fight? Computer music? Who knows? It's enough to make you wonder.
Next time on Moments of Wonder, I'll be asking where your lap goes when you stand up. Money is at the heart of the UK economy and many others. People fight for it, die for it, and put it in China pigs.
So what is money? Put simply, money is the best way we have of telling how much money you've got.
Over the centuries, many things have been used as money, including amber, wheat, eggs, travellers' checks, feathers, book vouchers, lobsters, beads, gold, leather, nectar points, rice, peas, mugs and money.
It was only the last of these that caught on. Increasingly these days, money isn't something you can hold in your hand or bite on like a pirate, because it's stored in the imaginations of computers. And some of those computers are probably here in the Bank of England.
But that computer money is in crisis. UK government debt is now £1 trillion, and even Wonga can't help. So who can? Maybe a money expert can tell us what money is and what to do.
Who are you and why are you an expert on money?
I'm Will Hutton, I'm an economist and I'm an economic writer.
What's the difference between economics and economics?
Nothing. It's just the way you pronounce the E. I think I prefer economics to economics, but I wonder what, you could put the same question to the Chancellor and the Governor of the Bank of England and see whether they like the hardy or the softy.
Hardy or softy?
Economics, economics. Economics, economics.
OK. Money's all stored in computers these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
How does a computer know what money looks like? How does it know?
Well, how does it recognise anything? How does a computer recognise, you know,
So you don't know?
It's, you know in principle, but you don't know in detail, no.
Do you know what I think's happened? Someone's told a computer what money looks like. They've gone up to a computer and they've said, this is like a £5 note. And then that computer's told the others. When you have a coin, where is the money in that coin? If I were to take a coin and cut it open, could I take the money out of that coin and then it'd be empty?
No, the coin is a token. The whole point about the coins in your pocket is they're universally accepted as a way of buying things. That's what the money is.
How much does it cost to make a 1p piece? Because if it's less than 1p, then it's a con, isn't it? But if it's like more than 1p, then do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of not worth it then.
Yeah. It costs a tiny amount of money to create a 1p piece. And that's
So they're ripping us off.
It seems no one really knows what money is. It will always be an unsolvable problem, like a crossword or a Rubik's Cube. Next time on Moments of Wonder, I'll be asking why there's more water in a tap than you'd expect. (1940 AD). France has fallen. Hitler has conquered Europe. Britain is on the verge of invasion. In the words of Bonnie Tyler, we're holding out for a hero. And unlike that song, originally recorded for the film Footloose starring Kevin Bacon, Britain got its hero. Winston Churchill. The first question is who or what is Churchill? The answer is who. He was born like most people and went to school, but unlike most people, he was also Prime Minister in black and white times, which was not a moment too soon because of a war, the war that would make him famous, War II. War II was like War I, but easier to understand because the baddie was better. Adolf Hitler rather than mud. Imagine what it was like in the war room on May the something, 1940. With Hitler's invasion of France a complete success, the debate was furious. Should Britain make peace or fight on alone? Although in this reconstruction, no one's arguing out loud because we can't afford equity rates. Leading the peacemongers was Lord Halifax. No one knows what he looks like, so we can have anyone play him and spend the money on a half-decent Churchill who wanted to keep on fighting. Some of Churchill's words are immortal. If the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say this was their finest hour. And never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. If he'd been alive today, just imagine how good his tweets would have been.
I've never met Churchill, so the best way to understand him is to ask someone else who never met him.
Hello, who are you?
My name is Dr. Peter Catterall. I'm Reader in History at the University of Westminster.
Why do we say Churchill won the war when we know he didn't have a proper go at it himself, did he?
What you mean in terms of fighting?
Yeah. He just sat underground in a hole, didn't he, smoking, telling people what to do, like a minicab operator.
Well, I suppose in some ways it's quite a good analogy, because unless you've got someone directing the fleet, the soldiers, the tanks, etc., then similarly it's not going to work.
Yeah. Churchill was sort of out of shape, wasn't he? Like, he was quite overweight and he drank and smoked a lot. He couldn't even climb a ladder, could he? How good a role model do you think he was, really?
I think he would find it difficult.
I mean, if you don't look at the fact that he won the war.
And indeed, before the war came along, he'd been out of office for 10 years. So, politically, he was in the wilderness.
What was he doing in the wilderness?
It's a metaphor. He was not in the government, he was on the Conservative backbenches.
Why did they have the backbenches in the wilderness?
The wilderness is a reference to the fact that he's not in office.
How did Winston Churchill come to invent Tipp-Ex?
Well, he didn't.
It's amazing to imagine that Churchill literally single-handedly stopped Germany from winning War II with his funny voice and his big cigar. And then one day, he just vanished. Nobody knows where he went. Next week on Moments of Wonder, I'll be finding out what's the heaviest month of the year. How have humans become the most top animals on the planet? It's because we're the only ones who ask questions, apart from owls. But they only ever want to know who's there. For years we've asked questions like, is there a meaning to life? How did those shoes get in my fridge? And most weird of all, how am I thinking these things?
When you think about it, thinking about thinking is the hardest sort of thinking there is, which makes you think. Luckily, some people in old faraway times spent their whole lives doing exactly that sort of thinking. People known as philosophers. One of the first philosophers was Pythagoras. His big idea was that everything in the world could be done with numbers, like in Argos. Pythagoras is best known these days as the inventor of the triangle. A world without his ideas would be unthinkable, because there'd be no Dairylea and no way of starting snooker.
Another old philosopher was Plato.
Plato invented platonic relationships. Before him, men and women couldn't just be friends. They had to have full sexual intercourse with each other, which is, of course, what people in platonic relationships want to do really anyway, whatever they tell people. In 1637, French philosopher René Descartes became famous for saying, "I think, therefore I am." What he was trying to say was, if everything's in our brains, how do we know we exist? And the answer, of course, is footprints. To find out more about philosophy, I've got an expert here with me. Or have I? Or am I here? Maybe I'm imagining them, or they're imagining me. Or am I? Hello, philosophy lady. Am I here?
Yes.
How do you know?
Well, I can see you, I can probably feel you. I can hear you.
What lovely warm hands.
Thank you. It is possible that I'm dreaming.
Yeah. Or I could be dreaming too, couldn't I?
Or you could be dreaming, yes, but you asked me whether you were here.
So if I was dreaming, that wouldn't have happened. No, if you were dreaming, that wouldn't have happened.
If I were dreaming, then my belief that you are here might be false.
Right.
And unless I can tell that I'm not dreaming, therefore, it's possible that you're not here.
Yeah. But if we both sort of nip ourselves...
Well, the trouble with nipping yourself like that is you might dream that as well. I mean, any test you can do to see whether you're awake, you could do when you're asleep. Any belief that could be false if you were asleep is a belief of whose truth you can't be certain unless you can be certain that you're awake.
Perhaps Descartes was right, and we think because we are. Because if you think about it, we probably are. And if we aren't, then maybe it doesn't matter. Next time on Moments of Wonder, I'll be asking, who lives in here and what do they want? Our planet is changing, and not in a good way, like into a butterfly or a giant magic shoe. And we're all to blame. I'm talking about climate change. 19 centuries ago, there was an industrial revolution which used coals. Coals is a fossil fuel, which means setting fire to dinosaurs. It's this dirty dinosaur gas which has been blamed for climate change. What's more, so many dinosaurs were burned for steam trains that nowadays there's almost no dinosaurs left. Rising temperatures are a worldwide problem. Experts say they're responsible for making the North Poles melt, meaning too much sea. Not everyone wants to live in the sea. You don't have to be a scientist to know that. You just have to have seen The Little Mermaid. She hated it. The government says we need to cut our greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. But if, like me, you don't have a greenhouse, they say you can reduce your carbon footprint by not flying and walking more. But my feet swell up when I walk, which is why I came here in a car. Storms battering the coast, tornadoes, blizzards, rain, women in bikinis, floods. If we keep discussing climate change at such an alarming rate, scientists predict the world's stock of weather footage will be exhausted by 2050. But not everyone thinks climate change is real. This hot topic has split the science community straight down the middle, 90-10. To hear both sides of this debate once and for all, I found one climate expert. Good afternoon. What are you?
My name's Andy Watson. I'm a marine, atmospheric and climate scientist.
How does weather actually work? And if you could make it snappy, because it's going to be on iPlayer.
Well, the atmosphere is constantly in motion. This motion means that you get winds if the air is rising.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to be a bit more snappy.
You get rain, you get snow.
Snappy. In one word.
Energy.
Energy, yeah. The world's getting hotter, isn't it? But how can we stop ourselves from turning into steam? What do we do? Should we just start eating more salad and stuff like that?
It's certainly true. We will have to adapt to a warmer climate. And we will probably have to eat different things. Because
ice cream and stuff.
Well, certainly as the world gets warmer, you know...
Probably going to be an ice ban, though, isn't it? So we can't have ice lollies.
I don't think so. It's not that bad.
How hot is too hot? You know, I mean, will we be like going, ow, all the time?
If global warming happens really slowly, then the world could probably adapt to being quite a lot warmer than it is
And we'll
today.
be long gone by then, so...
Well, that's true, but you've got to think about, you know, our children and our children's children.
I'm not going to have kids, I don't think.
Well, some people
yes, some
want to
people
have
will.
children.
Yeah, but not until, like, their children's children, so we don't sort of care, do we, about that?
Well...
There's a difference between thinking climate change is man-made and thinking climate change is made up. But I can't remember it because I'm too hot. And that might be a warning to us all, a global warning.
Next time on Moments of Wonder, I'll be finding out, where do fists come from?